Welcome to So What's It Actually About? I'm your host, Margie McKechnie, and I, along with my wide array of guests, hope to help you better understand and weather the wonderful world of actuarial science. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. We are joined by Renaldo. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Please give us a bit of context to the roles that you play as an actuary and a bit of background that you think would be helpful in setting the scene for our conversation.
Cool, yeah. So I'm currently a part-time lecturer at Wits. So I did that around about, around 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So finished my honours degree at Wits in 2013. Started working in 2014. So spent 3 years at EY. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, 4 years. Actually, it was 4 years at EY after that. And then, around 2018, decided to join Auditing, specifically focus on the IFRS17 implementation and the project thereof. Mm-hmm. It was actually at that point, I guess maybe it's a function of really being close to Wits or, just always having an affiliation with Wits and enjoying the lecturing side, that I basically started to get involved in some sessional lecturing. Mm-hmm. So, really what sessional lecturing is stepping in and, helping out with a topic that maybe a lecturer doesn't feel as comfortable with, but you maybe have more experience from industry on. And then it was around, I think it was post-COVID, so 2020, 2021, around then, I actually decided to take up part-time lecturing.
Sure.
So, you had part-time capacity and then, part-time working at Liberty. Mm-hmm. Just have really enjoyed it. I think the lecturing side of it brings a different dynamic to the work perspective. It's actually just been fantastic to just see the next generation of actuaries come through universities and just seeing the way that they think has been particularly interesting.
So I think before we get to those pieces, and there's numerous pieces I'd like to unpack there, can we backtrack to why you chose actuarial science? I think like any actuarial student, you generally have a lot of options because you're generally quite academically strong at a school level. Yeah. And so why actuarial science, and how did you get into the degree?
Yeah, so my dad's actually a qualified chartered accountant.
Okay.
So probably somewhere around grade 11, if you'd asked me, I was pretty much set to do CA. It was what I knew. That was the exposure that I had. I'm like most people, I'd never really been exposed to actuaries. So I was literally the first person from my school, probably from the area of Johannesburg I was from, to study actuarial science.
Sure.
It was quite at that stage, and this is 10 years ago. Yeah. So it's moved well beyond that. And I think really what it boiled down to was actually just quite a bit of job shadow, and getting different perspectives from different people who have been working in industry. Mm-hmm. Look, obviously, a key factor at the time, and it might be in future. At the moment, it's not that, but just how this degree, the way that it sets you up to critically think and solve unstructured problems was quite appealing to me. Mm-hmm. So when I actually sat down and spoke to my dad about it, the thing with, at least for me personally, the thing with kind of the accounting or chartered accounting route was it almost, especially in the initial years of even your work, it's kind of quite rigid. Yeah. I mean, it's quite rigid, it's quite fixed what you're going to do, what you're going to work on. Yes, you can kind of move and transform your career as you're moving along from there. But, as I got to understand the actuarial science world, I just realized that this is the way that my mind works. It's taking unstructured problems and looking to solve those unstructured problems in quite a neat, clever way. So, those two fields, I mean, like my dad always said, he's there to kind of retrospectively account for things and count the rands and cents. Whereas when I saw just what actuaries do, the fact that you're looking over much longer, you're almost looking into the future. So yes, we use data from the past, and that is quite important. But at the same time, that's just a data point. It's much more about projecting multi years into the future. Breaking it down, actuarial control cycle 1-1, revising that as the years go by. For me, it was quite a contrast to see, not that you don't do that in the accounts world, I think you do that, but much later on in your career. So I spoke to my dad about it. It was that kind of thinking around taking a problem, looking at it over a multi-year time horizon, solving for it, but also realizing that there isn't necessarily a right answer. So one of the biggest things that, when you do your undergraduate, okay, yes, there's a mathematical problem and there's an answer to it and you get the rands and cents, and that's fine, but actually being an actuary is not about that. you're constantly evaluating, pricing something, reserving for something, and things happen. COVID happens. You don't quite know what lies ahead.
Yeah.
So you're almost constantly revisiting that and just revising your expectations and your assumptions. And that was actually something that I saw very early on. Was when I did some job shadowing. Is almost the actuaries at the time. It was quite freeing, I guess. This idea of being able to project to project what's going to happen into the future, but also kind of having a chance to revise that as time goes on within certain constraints. So if you've priced a product and you can't reprice it for 10 years, I mean, that's fine. That's how the product's designed. But in a lot of circumstances, the world is forever changing. And you're almost constantly updating what that future outlook is. And actually for me, yes, obviously, everyone talks about kind of the money side of it, and just it being quite a good profession from a financial perspective. That helps. I think also just to being on a global scale, being able to essentially take what we do, and basically yes, maybe you have to do a course or two elsewhere in the world. Being able to transfer that on an international lens was a big draw card at the time. But I think that's the case with a lot of degrees. Fundamentally, for me, it actually just boiled down to unstructured problems, things which haven't been solved that you're constantly looking to solve, and actually they're not always being a kind of one size fits all right answer. There's multi different ways to look at things. Was quite appealing, and that's definitely how my working experience has panned out.
Okay, and tell me, so you got into actuarial science, and how was your studying experience? Did you enjoy it? Were there unexpected struggles? What was that like for you?
Oh, so I've got a very different take on this than most people, I think. And I think it's because I thought of to go in the accounting or chartered accounting route. So I personally, and maybe it's just because of the phase of life that I was in, I personally loved the fact that the actuarial science degree is very difficult. Because in a way it kind of, the cream always rises to the top. And I think the thing that in hindsight I would have battled with in the accounting or other professions is, you can work really hard, and that's fine. But a little bit, the difference with actuarial science is from the get-go, you just got to be on it. There's exemptions from the start. To the extent that you miss exemptions early on, you're almost constantly catching that up as you're moving around. So it's one of those where it was tough, because obviously I had friends and people who were, doing degrees, and they obviously enjoyed, certain nightlife and partying and all of that. I knew that I would be giving up that, and that is very difficult. In the moment, you think, what is the point? I mean, this is crazy, right? I'm working my absolute socks off. Meanwhile, everyone else is living their best life and enjoying their but meanwhile, to know that if that is a decision that you want to make, you get rewarded for that from the get-go by passing your exemptions, by just being that much closer to your ultimate qualification, and almost you then leave, assuming that you're willing to do that, you then leave university being very close to ultimately being qualified. I mean, I used to joke, so starting in EY was actually quite interesting then starting in EY, because there's a heap of accountants who start there, and there were guys there who, they just loved their university. They just knew, look, if I get 50 or 60, I'm fine, let me just get my degree. And then what would happen is they have to write those 2 board exams, kind of afterwards, but they were 2 in 1 for those 2 board exams. Because they're smart people. It's just that they wanted a bit more of a balance in university. And that's fine. I think just for me personally, I like the idea of being awarded early on for putting in that time and effort. And to ultimately just have an easier route to qualification. It comes with sacrifices. I mean, there are certain courses which are just unbelievably difficult, and always will be. I actually think, again, for me personally, I feel like it got easier as the years went by. First year was first year was okay. Second year was a bit of a shock.
I
think once it starts to move more into the practicalities and setting it up for the working world, I mean, honours is a massive shock to start off with, because you go from all of this very complex maths to the only numbers on a page really being the chapter title.
Or like a page number.
Yeah, so the page number, like, oh, this is chapter 12. And that can be very weird at first. Actually, once you get used to it, and once you're able to connect the dots, what you've studied, the foundation that you've set, and now trying to essentially apply it much more in the business world, it's actually very fulfilling to see everything coming together. I think when you're in first year or second year and it's difficult and there's maths, it's difficult to your point to see the wood from the trees. And people tell you that, but it's one thing hearing about it, it's another thing actually going through it and experiencing it.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it was challenging, but at the same time, I like the fact that, if you put in the time and effort, you get rewarded for that ultimately.
So then, after honours, you had how many board exams still that you needed to write?
So I've got a very unique journey to qualification.
I remember you telling me this.
I got rid of my exhibitions bar 1.
CT4.
CT4.
I remember this.
I think it's A212 now.
Yes.
Something along those lines. So I should have two exams technically.
Yes.
So CT4 and then I was ready to write fellowship.
Yes.
Which is rare in itself coming out of university. In fact, it's only rarely at Wits, if I'm not mistaken, that you're even in a position to do that.
Yeah.
So I looked at it, and I remember chatting to my manager at the time and thinking, okay, the obvious thing to do is to write CT4.
Yes.
Because that's a kind of technically subject, and that was the one that I'd missed in university. And my manager was just like, you know what, just give fellowship a crack. It's 6 months of work. You maybe don't have the greatest work experience, but you never quite know what's going to come out in the exam. And any exam that you don't write is a missed opportunity. So I did quite a weird thing in hindsight, but I actually wrote that the fellowship exam, so the final exam, in my first 6 months of work.
And you got it?
I got it. And actually, in hindsight, if I look at it, I got that one largely because, yes, obviously I studied quite hard for it, but the stuff that I've been working on, just a higher portion of the exam 100%. Ended up being a lot of the stuff that I've been working on. Mm-hmm. I would have failed. If I wrote it in the second session, I'm almost certain I would have failed.
Sure.
Just because of what then came up in the second session.
It was not what you were doing in your daily work.
Maybe I would have passed, but it just wasn't as well suited to me and what I enjoyed doing. So in hindsight, it's really happy that I wrote the first session and then went on to actually write CT4.
Modified on CT4, that's so funny.
Those are the best 10 days of studying leave I've ever had. Because that's the thing. Once you've written all the way into fellowship, going back and writing graduate university courses is very easy in hindsight. So it's a slightly different journey, but one that
qualified.
Exactly.
And so based on speak to your actual career post your formal studies, you started at EY, which is obviously a consultancy, and that was actually one of the first times I met you. I think you were my tutor possibly, or a tutor in the year that I started at least.
Yes.
But talk to your work at EY. I think something that students often struggle to understand is that actuaries also can work in the auditing space, and they play a very key role in the auditing space. And so just speak to sort of the work you did in the consulting space.
Sure. Yeah. So EY, yes. It's in the consulting space, but if you look at it, the consultants effectively have two big kind of areas or teams that are working. So you've got the advisory space. So that's where you as actuary are still working as a consultant or as an advisor with companies. So a lot of the work that I did at that stage, for example, is I'd be working for Liberty, with Liberty, as an example. So you'd still be working with a corporate, and you'd almost be working for that corporate. You'd be helping them build something, or unpack a problem, or restructure something, or price something. So maybe not, a company like Liberty or other big insurers, they don't necessarily need help with pricing. But you've got a lot of tier 2 or even tier 3 type insurers in South Africa who don't necessarily have full-time actuaries working in-house. And therefore because it just doesn't make economical sense. Because they need it, but only at certain times of the year.
Exactly.
So the advisory side of consulting is you're actually working for a company or consulting to them. So you're doing the work that you would have for that company if you were working for that company. Yeah. But you're just not employed formally by that company. 100%. You're contracted in to do the job, to price the product, to value, to do the year evaluation for a period of time, and then you shift out of that. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So that's the one side of consulting, is the advisory lead, and then you've got the audit lead. So the likes of EY, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte are clearly big audit firms. Yeah. And we touched on the accountants. They bring in a whole bunch of accountants every single year through the programs. And so if you look at not just the big insurers, but all the big insurers are audited by one of those four. Yes. And most of your insurers below that, size-wise, are audited by one of those companies. Yeah. So from an audit perspective, you're still doing work with those companies, but it's just in a different capacity. Yeah. So to explain what exactly we mean by the audit side, that's really where either the company itself, all the people that they've brought in as consultants or advisors to do pieces of work, that gets done, but and as an auditor, it's your responsibility to essentially go and check and make sure that you're comfortable with those results, the way that the product is priced, the way that it's been